What's up, everybody? I'm Dan Kornhauser.
I'm Bobby Hunt.
Thank you guys for tuning in and sticking with us. We're almost done. Part 3 of our MLB COVID-shortened season preview. We've already done the AL East, NL East, AL Central, NL Central. We've talked about all the teams. We've made our predictions, and now we are down to the last two, the AL West and the NL West. And both of these divisions offer all kinds of storylines, from the cheating ass Astros, emphasis on the ass, to the Dodgers being, by most accounts, the best team in baseball. And some butts, some contenders. And let's jump right into it, Bob. Let's go with the AL West, which is a division that should have some interesting storylines, to say the very least. Aside from the assholes, the Astros being cheating sluts, which is something that probably would have affected them pretty significantly over the course of a 162-game year. But they got bailed out because there's not going to be any fans and shit like that. So we'll see what goes on that front. But it's the assholes, the Angels. I really like the Angels, another one of those teams with an absolutely stacked lineup. The Athletics, who, even though they don't fucking really have the horses and they don't really have the names, they're just a good team. They're well coached. They come up clutch in key situations, and they do just enough to stay relevant. But let's start near the top. You know what? Fuck it. Let's start at the top. Let's go to the Houston Astros. Now, the cheating aside, we've talked about the cheating. We've talked about it in depth. We've heard about it. We know that they're cheating sluts. They're a bunch of lying whores. They cheated their way to a championship. Ric Flair would be proud.
Woo!
And they are, for all intents and purposes, the villain of the MLB season this year. Normally, it's the Yankees, the evil empire and such, but it's the Astros. And teams might want to kick their ass. Fans might hate them outside of Houston. And they might be cheating whores. But, Bob, I look at this lineup, and I don't see any holes. They're another one of those teams that, at least lineup-wise, are littered with all-stars, a couple of potential MVPs, which not many teams can say. Their pitching staff's a little weaker because Cole left and took his AL Cy Young goatee girthiness to the New York Yankees. And while he may be gone, they're still all right. I think they'll be okay. But George Springer, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, my boy Carlos Correa, Yordan Alvarez, Yuli Gurriel, Michael Brantley. What the fuck? That is a murderer's row, second to only maybe the Yankees. And Bregman, MVP candidate. Altuve, former MVP. Correa has MVP talent. Alvarez shat last year. So, Bob, they lost Cole. Everybody hates them. Does it matter?
Probably doesn't, especially now that COVID-19 did hit and affect this season, because now there's not going to be any fans in the stands. So that's a lot of pressure off the Astros. Without a doubt, everywhere they would have visited this season, they would have been killed by fans in the stands. They would have been heckled to the high heavens. They would have had people just giving them an earful at every turn, especially whenever they played teams like the Yankees or other major rivals within the AL West. They would have been killed. They totally would have felt the brunt of everyone's scorn as they traveled to every city, pretty much. Not just those teams, but even playing interleague games or teams in the AL Central. They would have gotten heckled. But now they don't have to worry about that. They're not going to have as many people. They're not going to have anyone in the stands, and they're not going to have people putting that kind of negative, pressure on them, basically. And to basically say, yeah, we may have cheated back then, but we're still really good. But hey, like you mentioned, this is still a very good team regardless. They weren't, some of these players were on the team even before they started banging on trash cans and cheating their way to a World Series. Fortunately, they didn't win the World Series last year because it would have looked even worse had they won 2 World Series in the last 3 years amidst the cheating scandal. And they lost their manager, they lost their GM, so they're all out.
Yep.
But the players went through unscathed. They didn't get punished. Like you, someone like you was very hard on them and felt
That was very hard.
I tend to agree to some extent, but I knew it was going to be very hard because they needed to get them to cooperate in order to really figure out what went on and what happened. So that I get why they got immunity, but they should have done something like at least fines, if not suspensions. But that's a story we'll leave in March. We'll obviously touch on it here to preface it. But again, this is a very good team. They're going to benefit from the fact that fans aren't going to be in the stands. And they have that continuity. They're not going to have a lot of new players. Hurts a lot to lose someone like Garrett Cole. Led the league last year in strikeouts,
Berth.
league in ERA. He was second in Cy Young voting, lost to his teammate Justin Verlander, who led the AL in wins with 21. But they still have Verlander. They still have Greinke, who they acquired last year around the trade deadline. Lance McCullers Jr., who was a big part of their 2017 run, is back now. He missed almost all of last year, if not all of last year, with an injury. So he should slide in as their number 2 or number 3 starter. So they're still very top-heavy in that rotation. I do have questions about potentially Josh James or Framber Valdez in the back of the rotation, but that 3 is right up there with the likes of, say, the Dodgers or the Reds that we talked about in the Central, or the Nationals with Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin. Very good team still. And in the lineup, everyone returns. They didn't lose anybody. They have Bregman, Springer, so many good players. So they're still going to be a very tough team to get out. And they still have a good bullpen. Roberto Ozuna led the league in saves last year. So they had a ton of league leaders, as I've already mentioned. So the Astros are still very good again. And it's really hard to find a lot of flaws in their lineup or their rotation. The big loss is Cole, which is definitely going to make them a little bit worse. But is it going to make them that bad that they're not going to make the playoffs? I doubt it.
I can't help but agree. Verlander and Greinke are nice. McCullers, as you said, is a solid piece. We'll see if he could step up and get his shit together and get back to that level that he was when they rode him back to their run the last time. But Jose Urquidy and then Josh James and names like that, there are questions at the tail end of that rotation, and we'll see. They will be tested this year, and I think this year, out of any of recent memory, could be one of those tough seasons for them, where there may not be fans and shit like that, but these teams around the league are going to want to beat them, and they're going to want to make a statement. And this team is very talented, but I think Verlander can be had getting up there in age. Greinke can be had. He has those moments, and it'll be interesting to say the very least. I think this is one of those years, partially because it's shortened and anything can happen, but I think this is one of those years where if they exhibit any sort of weakness and they start slow or something like that, I think they'll be in trouble, really.
In the betting world, before we go on to the other teams, one of the things that people were talking about a lot prior to the season and before COVID really hit and shut everything down was the number of times that Astros hitters would be beamed, that they would be intentionally hit, or some pitchers would probably make it try to look like it wasn't intentional. But now with this 60-game season, not only are fans not going to be heckling them in the stands, but pretty much with the 60-game season, that's roughly a third, a little bit more than a third of a regular season. Every game is pretty much worth 3 times as much as it usually would be. So it's going to be – these teams aren't going to have that luxury of just beaming them. These games are extremely important. Every game matters so much. So I really don't also – I also think they're going to benefit because they're not going to be hit as much. Guaranteed, if it was a 162-game season, especially in blowouts, either way, whether they're getting blown out or the team's blowing them out, you would have seen them get beamed and hit purposely by opposing pitchers. But with 60 games, you really can't afford to mess around like that.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And you don't want to have a pitcher beam a guy and be suspended for a few games for doing such, especially if it's a worthwhile piece or a quality bullpen arm or something like that. You're going to need everybody ready to go. And if maybe starters don't go as much, so you need that bullpen love. You can't really risk the key bullpen guy or closer or someone like that beaming anybody and missing some games. So that'll be definitely something to watch. But let's move on. Let's talk about from the Houston Astros to the Halos. Let's talk about the Angels. I think the Angels stand poised to be their biggest competition in the division. They also have an absolutely ridiculous lineup. Trout, Rendon, who they added in the offseason, Shohei Ohtani, former Rookie of the Year, GOAT, Justin Upton, an aging Pujols, but still goaty. Adrielson Simmons, Jason Castro at catcher, some quality pieces. Now, their questions lie in the rotation. And while they don't have the arms and the names that you look for, really, they don't have that all-star starting pitcher. They don't have that stud, surefire ace. A rotation of Andrew Heaney, Shohei Ohtani, Julio Teheran, Dylan Bundy, Griffin Canning. That offers some options. And I know Canning did his thing at times for them, and I know Teheran has had his, and Bundy have had their quality starts at times. And Shohei Ohtani is going to be pitching once a week. So they're going to be using essentially 6 starting pitchers in their rotation, with Ohtani guaranteeing to pitch when he's healthy once a week. So I think they're a prime competitor for the Astros. Rendon is a huge addition, gave him a shit ton of money, and he is a perfect Robin to Mike Trout's Batman. And I think he fits like a glove. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ohtani can do as a full-time DH. Pitching-wise, we know what he was, and I think as great as he is as a pitcher, I think he's going to be making his money as a hitter. I think that's where he's going to really stand out. So I like the Angels. I don't really necessarily see them as like a contender for a championship per se. I think it's still the Astros division, but I think it's closer than it has been in the past. Where do you stand, Rob?
I disagree. I don't like the Angels that much. They were only a 72-win team last year. And while they did make some nice improvements, particularly with Anthony Rendon, right up there with Garrett Cole, one of the premier signings of the offseason, Josh Donaldson to the Twins, a key cog in the middle of a lineup, and led the NL in RBIs last year. I just don't love this team. I'm not as high on their lineup as you are. I still see major holes like a Brian Goodwin right field, Tommy La Stella at second base, Jason Castro's on right. Pujols, we know, is past his prime. It helps that, of course, they can slide him in at DH, but they have Ohtani there. Ohtani's going to be the DH. They're not going to put him in the field. So even so, Pujols is still really blocked there. I hate their bench. No one worthwhile at all on that bench, even though they were with them last year. Dylan Bundy in the rotation had a good, I think, 2017 with the Orioles, but it's been pretty asshole since then. He was one of the top prospects in the Orioles system a few years ago, but outside of 2017 has been pretty awful. I don't think that'll get any better pitching against these teams in AL and NL West. Bullpen, the biggest addition really to me besides Rendon is the fact that Joe Maddon's going to be their manager.
Joe Maddon, yep.
So if your prediction might turn out right that they're the second best team in this division, next to the Astros, it's going to be because they have a good manager and they brought in Rendon. So I think that'll help. But one thing that also is a factor in why I'm not as high on them is the status of Mike Trout. Now, I do at this moment think he'll play a full season, but I believe his wife is pregnant and going to give birth soon. And he's someone that has been very concerned, and rightfully so, with everything going on with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to probably miss time for the birth of his child. I don't know whether it's boy or girl, but I think that's definitely a factor, and especially in a 60-game season. Losing the best player in baseball, who was the MVP last year, we both predicted him to win the MVP last year. We wound up being right, one of the few right ones as far as the awards go. But I just don't – I just feel like there's still not enough in that Angels team, particularly their pitchers, for me to feel comfortable slotting them as a playoff team. So, I mean, I'm kind of giving it away right now, but I don't see the Angels as a playoff team, even in a 60-game season.
All right, well, what about the Oakland Athletics? They're a team that interests me. And while I do have some of those same concerns as you share with the Angels, with their rotation, with their depth, I think the Oakland A's are a team that can be a little sneaky, especially in such a shortened season. Marcus Seaman, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Chris Davis, Ramon Laureano, Mark Canha, Stephen Piscotty, all very quality guys. I mean, Chapman and Olson both had, I think, over 35 home runs apiece. I know Chapman had 36, so it's just a matter of what Olson had. But I know they went in last year. Simeon, whatever his fucking name, did his thing last year as well. And it's an interesting lineup. It's not as stacked as some of these other lineups, but Chapman and Olson are a very nice 1-2 punch at the 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 slots. And for me, even though their starting pitching leaves a bit to be desired with Mike Fiers and Sean Manaea essentially at the top by default, I do like Jesus Luzardo, left-handed starting pitcher, and AJ Puck, also left-handed starting pitcher, both young prospects, both young pieces. I like them a lot, and I think especially a guy like Puck, who's very highly regarded as a prospect, at least prospect rankings, MLB.com and such. I think those two guys slotted at the tail end. Luzardo is a top 12 prospect for them in their farm system. Puck is up there as well. It's questionable, but they've got some talent as well. But I think they're just a notch below. But this is one of those teams that stands out to me that, especially in the short season, they can make some noise. What do you think?
That I agree with. I have less concerns about the Oakland Athletics. They were a playoff team a year ago. They made the wild card round. And kind of similar to the Rays, where they don't have a lot of sexy players necessarily, but overall they just have a very good roster. And they're a team that, to me, has a better lineup than, say, the Rays. They don't have as good a starting rotation, but they also had probably a better bullpen than a team like the Rays. So I actually really do like the Athletics. They have a lot of mashers in that lineup that you alluded to, specifically Matt Chapman and Chris Davis, that will be key factors for them. Definitely could hit 20 home runs in this season. Basically, 20 home runs is probably the barometer we're looking at in this shortened season. You figure 50 home runs is kind of like the high watermark usually in a 162-game season. With a third of that season, 20 is probably going to be roughly that number for this season. And they also don't have a lot of turnover in their roster. They added a few pieces in their on their bench, and one player, I think at second base, Tony Kemp. But you have mashers like the guys I mentioned, Matt Olson as well, Stephen Piscotty. Marcus Semien was an AL MVP candidate last year. He was in the top 3. He was right up there with Bregman and Mike Trout, all from the same division. So the 3 teams we mentioned, that's where the AL candidates came from for the MVP last year. And it will be really interesting also to see Mike Fiers when he does pitch against the Astros, because as we know, with the cheating scandal, he was the whistleblower. He was the one that revealed to the Athletic, to Evan Drellick and Ken Rosenthal, who broke that report in November of 2019, that the Astros were stealing signs and had the elaborate scheme. So it'll be really fascinating to see how much the Astros get up for facing Mike Fiers once they finally get that chance. But basically, A's a very deep team, not a lot of turnover. And also their bullpen is one of the best. Liam Hendricks is a very good closer.
Liam Hendricks, yep.
Joe Soria, even if Hendricks fails, those are very capable closers as well. Bob Melvin's a very good manager. So I really do like the A's, and I think that they are in a better position than the Angels, for example.
Okay, that's fair. As you said earlier, agree to disagree. But before I move on, I did want to say one thing because I completely forgot about this. It was Joe Adell, the Los Angeles Angels. He is, by most standards, considered a top 10 prospect in all of baseball, some top 5. I'd say top 10 is a fair barometer for him at this point. I don't know if he'll be on the major league roster to start, but anytime you're talking about young legends, someone like that is someone worth noting. But moving on from Oakland and the Angels and so on and so forth, let's talk about the Rangers, Bob. The Rangers, they're a bit of a weird team for me because I look at their lineup and I see some pieces that I like. I like Elvis Andrus. I like Joey Gallo. I like Willie Calhoun. But, I mean, I like their starting pitching. I like Lynn, Minor, Kluber. Kluber was a great addition for them. But it's solid, not spectacular of a roster. I don't know how you'll feel about it, but I think this is one of those teams that's also primed, like the Kansas City Royals, for example, to potentially move some of these quality veterans. Andrews, Santana, Frazier maybe, definitely Lynn or Minor, or even Gibson. Any one of those starting pitchers can go if they're but I don't think this is a team that's really going to be standing out. I don't see them as a contender for the division crown. I don't see them as a contender for the playoffs, really. They could surprise, but like I said, you need veteran-laden guys with good starting pitching, or you need to have some quality young guys coming up, and the Rangers don't have that quality youth. Their best guy, Josh Jung or Sam Huff, both of them just not quite right outside the top 50 in most circuits. Good, not great. Do you agree, Bob? Do you disagree? Am I underselling it a bit? I mean, this is one of those teams that underwent a lot of change, adding Gibson and Lyles in the offseason for the starting rotation, adding 4 or 5 relievers, adding Kluber via trade. Where does Texas stand for you?
They had a decent amount of turnover as well, mostly through these previews. I'm not as high on a lot of teams that are turning over the roster. The Rangers actually are one of those exceptions. I'm actually more positive about some of the turnover that they've had on their squad, basically on their roster, particularly with trading for Corey Kluber, former Cy Young winner. I don't think he's as good as he used to be, but I think for Texas, that's a huge win. They didn't have to give up a lot. The Indians were a team that, as we talked about in the Central preview, they're a small market team. They can't afford to keep a lot of their players, and I think the Rangers got a good deal for Corey Kluber. That could be their ace. Now, granted, Lance Lynn or Mike Minor might be their opening day starter, but that's more so just because they were with the team last year and they did have very good seasons. But Kluber is the most talented, to me, by far, of all the pitchers in their rotation. They bring in Kyle Gibson, Jordan Lyles. I think those are good back end of the rotation players, pitchers. Bullpen, not crazy about. Nothing to write home about. They brought in 3 new pitchers in the bullpen. I can't get excited for Jose Leclerc as their closer. I envision problems there. But as far as our lineup goes, I think that is at least their worries. Joey Gallo can mash it with the best of them. It's kind of like the new age Adam Dunn. He's going to hit probably like 220, but in a normal season, 162 games, probably could hit 40 home runs pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
But Shin-Soo Choo, still a very capable hitter. Going to slide in at DH, probably play right field a little bit too. Elvis Andrus, good player still. Todd Frazier, he'll be a good hitter, particularly in Texas. And Robinson Chirinos coming from the Astros. Odor is still a capable second baseman. What I'm really interested to see, though, with the Rangers is they're one of the few teams, I think the only team actually, this season that's opening a new ballpark. And from the interior, it looks great, but the exterior's gotten panned a lot, looking like a warehouse or a Home Depot. And it'll remain to be seen if it'll be as much of a hitter park as it was previously. Because that's really what, looking at this division or this region in the West, I bet every AL West team is super excited to play in Coors Field. And I was going to say, I bet every NL West team is excited to play in Texas, but they do have a new ballpark.
Yep.
See if this park is going to live up to its predecessor. I think it is retractable roof, so you're not going to have that dry heat where the ball is going to fly through. They're going to close that stadium often, especially since we're starting in July and August. So I would figure they're going to keep it closed and air conditioned for a lot of their games.
Mm-hmm. Well, from teams that we feel good about and are pretty solid to a team that's unfortunately pretty butthole. And we'll be seeing my mascot soon enough. And we're talking about the Seattle Mariners. It's ugly. It's really ugly. Vogelbach and Kyle Seager are pretty much the only names worth a damn that I can see, that I can think of. Their starting pitching is real fucking threatening. Marco Gonzalez, Kendall Graveman, Justice Sheffield, who was a former top prospect. Taijuan Walker, also a former top prospect. Just wildly mediocre, and I kind of fucking hate it. Their closer spot is still wide open. I think it's between guys like Matt McGill and Austin Adams. Just gross. And one of these, you get a hearty hashtag pineapples because I hate it and I can't fucking stand it and I hate this team. We're talking about one of the worst in baseball. And they make all these moves every offseason. They're fucking butt. Pineapples. I don't like it.
I agree. I do think they're going to be a dweller here in the AL West. I would mention Kyle Seager, but he seems to always be hurt.
Always.
Malik Smith did lead the league in stolen bases last year with 46, but
gives a shit.
Stolen bases don't matter nearly as much as they did, say, in the 80s. D. Gordon is the only one I would throw in there, too, is a very good hitter. Definitely an MLB pro. Belongs in a lot of lineups. But, yeah, after that, nothing to get really excited about. The Mariners are clearly a team in transition. They've gotten rid of a lot of players in the last couple of years via trade and free agency, particularly last year in the prior offseason, 2018 into 19, trading Robinson Cano's contract and one of their best bullpen arm in Edwin Diaz to the Mets. Fortunately for them, they got one of the top prospects in baseball back from the Mets in that trade. We'll see if he'll be able to contribute this year or not, but it remains to be seen. I don't love their rotation at all. Marco Gonzalez as the ace is fugly. Taijuan Walker, I'm glad you mentioned him. I'd like to see if he can be a reclamation project and live up to his potential. He's a former top prospect of Diamondbacks. Hopefully he can stay healthy for a 60-game season, but it's bad in Seattle. And also Mitch Haniger is probably going to start the year on the IL again. He's always hurt last few years. If he's healthy, that'll be a big boon to the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, he's not. They also have a decent amount of turnover. I count about 6 or 7 new players on the roster as well. And they'll have more new players on the roster because GM Jerry DiPoto seems to make trades constantly. So
Greg.
I would say take it to the bank. If it's a bet anywhere, I would definitely throw money on the Mariners making a trade prior to the August 31st deadline.
That's almost a damn for sure. This actually was an off season where they made less moves than they had in previous seasons because they made a lot of moves last year. They made a lot of moves the year before that. They must have made like 30 or 35 transactions, half of those being trades. Fucking crazy. You can't fault them for trying. You get an A for effort, I guess.
They got to rebuild. They got to rebuild their farm system. But yeah, they don't. A lot of their players are often injured, like Haniger this year, so kind of hard to trade. Luckily, they got the Mets to take Cano, but I'm blanking on the prospect. That's why I didn't mention his name. But Mets fans will certainly know. I'm just blanking on the name. I know
Jared Kelenic.
Kelenic. There you go. Thank you.
Yep, outfielder. Jared Kelenic, who's actually also probably a top 10 to 15 overall prospect. Julio Rodriguez, another outfielder who's a little farther off. He's only 19 years old. But aside from those two guys, they don't really have much. Evan White at first base, I think, might be in contention to be their starting everyday first baseman when the season begins. But he's in the 50s in terms of ranking, 50s, 60s, give or take, depending on what you look at. But they don't have, I don't think, the horses youth-wise or arms-wise to really make any moves or make any waves. Let's go to the National League East, though, Bob. I'm sorry, National League West, where this is actually going to be a very interesting division because we're both going to have two wildcard teams from this division. And I think I know who we both are going to have winning the division. So let's just start there and get it over with what may very well be the deepest, most talented, fucking video game-esque built team that disgusts me. We're talking about the LA Dodgers. Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, Gavin Lux, Will Smith at catcher, Justin Turner, old reliable. Goddamn. Gavin Lux, who's slated to potentially be their starting everyday second baseman, is a top 3 prospect in all of baseball. Very highly coveted, very talented. Can play second, can play short, maybe even third in a pinch. But he'll be out there, and he's slotted as of now in the 9 hole. And a lot of teams are jealous that that's the situation because he would probably be a lot more prominent positioning in a batting order if he didn't have to play in LA. But then the starting pitching staff, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler, who I know Bob loves, Julio Urias, left-handed stud, young pitcher, Alex Wood, another lefty. This is a team that, by all accounts, should be considered the most talented in all baseball, should be considered the best team in the whole league, and should be considered one of the top 2 or 3 favorites in all of baseball to be a championship contender. And I think this division is theirs for the taking. Not to say that the other teams in the West are that much terrible than they are, but this just might be a testament to how good the Dodgers are.
The Dodgers are the most talented team, honestly. Even though, yes, we're Yankee fans, I think the Dodgers are the most talented team in baseball. They've been knocking on the door for freaking years now. Now, granted, they got upset in the NLDS last year by the Nationals, but they made the World Series the 2 years prior, lost the Astros and the Red Sox, but they're pretty much due. It might be their year. It does hurt, though, that it is only 60 games because really, like the Yankees and the Twins and the Astros and the best teams that we can think of, it would really benefit them because their depth is what would help them in a 162-game season. Get to 100 wins and plus. But, yeah, their lineup is better than the Yankees. It's number 1 to me. Because also you got to factor in, I think the Yankees have a good bench, but you look at their bench, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, they can play all over the field in a pinch. They can slide in at almost any position save for catcher. And even at catcher, Austin Barnes is one of the better backups in all of baseball. So there's just really no holes. And Will Smith was a great rookie last year, and he's going to be one of the top 5 offensive catchers in baseball going forward. Cody Bellinger is reigning MVP. This team is just ridiculous. And that's just hitters.
Yeah.
The pitchers. I love Walker Buehler. I picked him to win the Cy Young last year. Now, we're not doing awards this year, but probably if we were doing awards, I would pick Walker Buehler. I love Walker Buehler. I think
you love Walker Buehler.
Fucking love him.
Love that kid.
He's one of my favorite players. He's nasty. He's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball going forward.
All right, so this just in. So if Bob has children, aside from slurping Walker Buehler, I think it's going to be safe to say that if he has children, he's going to want to have 2 of them because the first one's going to be Walker and the second one's going to be Texas Ranger.
No, it's got to be Bueller.
Bueller.
Movies. It's got to be Bueller. Yeah, it's ridiculous. They still have Kershaw, who
Yeah, dude.
he had another bad postseason moment, but he's a great regular season pitcher. Urias, Woods, Stripling, their bullpen is very good.
Yep.
You look at them, so like the Yankees and the AL, the favorite, the only knock is can they stay healthy, particularly guys like Judge and Stanton. And it's nitpicking. The nitpicking Dodgers is maybe just the back end of their bullpen. Kenley Jansen sucked down the stretch last year. He had almost a 5-year ERA in the second half. So he's maybe a little bit of a concern, but based on his track record, you would think he'd get it right. He has enough track record to show that he'll be fine. And they brought in Blake Trinan, who's been one of the better relievers in high leverage situations and the back end of the bullpens for the last few years. So even if Jansen falters, they have him. Pedro Baez has experience closing. Joe Kelly's one of the better middle relievers. So there's just really not a lot of holes on this Dodgers roster. I think one of the few things that has been holding them back in the postseason, besides say Clayton Kershaw's struggles, is Dave Roberts' managerial miscues. That's really the only things you can really talk about with the Dodgers. It's really just what are they going to do once it comes regular season, once it comes postseason.
That's a fair question. That is absolutely a fair question for sure. And it's definitely something that we'll see for sure, one way or the other, because they'll be in the dance. Don't you worry about that. Now, let's go to one of the contenders in that division, in my opinion, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I like what the Diamondbacks have been doing. I like the moves that they've been making the last couple of years. And even though it kind of hurt for them to have to lose a guy like Goldschmidt via trade, having a guy like Ketel Marte helps. Sterling Marte, Eduardo Escobar, solid fucking trio, man. Real solid. As solid as there is across the league. Cole Calhoun, Jake Lamb, some solid names, David Peralta. But that pitching staff, dude, they added Madison Bumgarner this offseason. Just a quality addition. I think that's going to really make a difference for them and the makeup of the team. Adding a guy like him, 5 years, $85 million deal, he's going to slide right in as their de facto ace in front of Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray did his thing. Luke Weaver, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. The back end of that is a little threatening, but I like what Kelly showed at times. I like what Gallen has showed at times as well, and Weaver's got the pedigree. So I think the 1-2 punch at the top in Bumgarner and Ray, that's two lefties that not many teams have, quality lefties at the top of their rotations. A lot of these teams have really righty-heavy rotations, which I hate. I think that's a big problem. I like teams that have mixed up rotations. That's always ideal. For me, righty-lefty is the ideal rotation setup, to be completely honest. But to have two quality lefties at the top, I think that's something that sets them apart. I think that's impressive. Along with the hitting that I mentioned, the guys like the Martes and Escobar in particular, they stand out. They're not quite right, and I like Archie Bradley as a closer, but the bullpen is, in my opinion, nothing special as well. I think it is the Dodgers' division to lose. Are you feeling kind of squirrely on the D-backs, Bob, or not so much?
I am. This is one I do agree with you on. I do think the Diamondbacks are one of the few threats in this division. Honestly, the only threat. I think this division honestly kind of sucks. I don't like the other teams that we're going to get to. I think the Diamondbacks are the only team that really is any kind of threat.
Okay.
Dodgers. Now, one of the problems is their lineup is obviously not as deep. It's very good, but you also don't see any one player that you're going to say, all right, he can carry them. He's going to be someone that they can rely on.
Right.
There's not that type of guy, but it is a deep lineup where you feel like all of them are pretty much capable hitters. From the Jake Lambs, Eduardo Escobars, Nick Ahmed, Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb, he benefits too from the universal DH because they'd like to stick him at DH rather than having him play third base, especially because that way they can put Escobar there and put Ketel Marte at second. I did love the trade for Starling Marte. I think that's a big really help that lineup and make it deeper and give some protection to some of those middle of the order players. So I think that was a big get for them. John Jay also, not a big get, but someone who's nice depth piece that can slide in at really any outfield position.
Mm-hmm.
Madison Bumgarner is really the guy that I really wanted Yankees to potentially get at the trade deadline last year. Now, comparing to, say, Cole, I'd rather have Cole, no doubt about it. Younger, proven, and looks like he's more on granted, he's not that much younger than Bumgarner. I think only 2 years younger. But it seems like Madison Bumgarner's peak was, say, 2013 and 14, particularly 14 when he won the World Series MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Been a while since then. And he hasn't been a tremendous regular season pitcher, but he's still been a very good one. And, yes, him and Robbie Ray at the top of the rotation definitely makes me feel good about their odds. I have some questions about their bullpen depth, but Archie Bradley, Yohan Lopez at the back end, pretty solid. This is a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. It does hurt, though, that Mike Leake, who is a pretty good middle-of-the-rotation type pitcher, isn't going to be available. He's going to be opting out due to COVID-19, so that does hurt the Diamondbacks.
Now, I'm about to throw out another team that I really like, and I know you're not going to be too much of a fan of this team. I think we've had conversations about this team before. I'm talking about the San Diego Padres.
I knew where you were going. Yeah.
I'm talking about the Padres. Now, look at this team, and I'm going through their roster, and I'm going through the lineup. The lineup of Tatis Jr., Pham, Machado, Hosmer, and Will Myers is very sexual. Trent Grisham, Jurickson Profar, another former elite prospect. Just quality, and that's what you're looking for. Now, their pitching staff is what scares me, and I know that's what you're going to throw out as well. I like their bullpen. I like Kirby Yates, but the starting pitching does leave some questions. Chris Paddock is a legit ace, but Lamet, Davies, Lucchesi, Garrett Richards, just like Lamet, Lucchesi, like they have the potential. Like I think Davies has shown that he can be useful at times in the past. And same thing with Garrett Richards. But aside from Paddock, who I really like, you're hoping for a lot. You're really hoping for a lot, I think. And Lucchesi in the past was looked at as a potential quality, like number 3 starting option, but not so much these days. And I think maybe that might be to his benefit. But I think what really matters with the Padres is that lineup. Tatis Jr. is a legitimate superstar, all-star, quality piece at shortstop. Could do it all. Tommy Pham, I know Bob was talking shit earlier from the other team, the other side of this trade, what they had gotten in return. But Tommy Pham is a huge get for the Padres, and sliding him in front of Machado, who we know what Machado is, superstar. Will Myers has done his thing in the past. I like Will Myers. It's a good squad. It's a good lineup, and I think it's one that could really make some surprising waves if everything goes right for them and their pitching steps it the fuck up. They're one of those teams that, when I said you need either that veteran lineup with a good starting pitching staff or some youth, they don't really have the youth that you look for, but Mackenzie Gore, a left-handed pitcher, is the best prospect on that team, and one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball, maybe the best pitching prospect in all of baseball. And he's going to get some love this season, and he will get some playing time. I don't know if he's going to be slotting in as a starter from day one when the season begins, but he's an elite top 5 prospect, top 10, 100% top 10, no matter where you're looking, any sort of metrics that you go by. We're going to see some Gore, and I think that's going to be nothing but good things. And he's a legitimate quality prospect to the point where if you're going to have a guy like Chris Paddock as your ace, as your number 1, having Mackenzie Gore as a number 2 is damn good. And I don't know if it's going to be this year. I would definitely say she should get some love because they definitely need that help. And if he's as right as everyone says he is, that'll be a huge boon to their chances. But Bob, why don't you love the Padres? Why don't you like giving the Padres some love? ¿Qué pasó? Paso.
Well, so honestly, basically, I don't have as much of a sunny outlook on the Padres as you do, but it is a positive one. Honestly, I do think they are trending up, so I'm not gonna kill them. I do think, especially in a 60-game season, they might be that surprise team. You might be right; they could be the team that fights with the Dodgers to win this division in a 60-game season.
Because what happens when Tatis fucking shits, Pham's hitting 300 and is playing at an all-star level, and Machado gets his shit together and like we expect. Then what?
Well, Paddock was going to be potentially a threat to Pete Alonso last year in the Rookie of the Year award race, but Tatis was gaining a lot of steam toward the end of the season, but then he got hurt, and of course he wasn't going to win it after that. He missed like the last 50 games of the year, which pretty wrapped it up for Alonso. But Tatis was coming on very strong and making a solid case for himself as the Rookie of the Year. So I definitely think that they are a very good up-and-coming team. I 100% think that in a 60-game season where we will see some surprises, this is one of those teams that I could 100% see it coming from. My problems are just the fact that, again, it's a team that has a lot of turnover. They brought in, looking at their projected roster, they have, say, 9 or 10 guys that are new to the team that are going to make the opening day roster, and a lot of them are pitchers, which I think is the bigger problem for teams that have a lot of turnover, having new pitchers, and not only that, but they also bring in a new manager. So and also a manager that isn't proven. He's not Joe Madden or Joe Girardi. It's Jace Tingler, a guy that was in the front office for the Texas Rangers. Now, he is a former player. He has coached at lower levels previously, so it's not like he has no experience or anything. But I just have my doubts compared to some of the other managerial hires that were done in this offseason, where I question how well he's going to be able to succeed right away and be able to figure things out really in a 60-game season. Now, luckily, he won't have to worry about too much strategy like a lot of new NL managers have to do. You know, we saw how Mickey Callaway did locally with the Mets. That was a big adjustment for him over these last 2 years, and he wound up getting fired. Now, at least he's not going to have to worry about, double switches or when to hit, when to sub in a pinch hitter for his pitcher. He won't have to worry about that with the universal DH. Tatis is a tremendous talent. He's going to be one of the best players in baseball going forward. Eric Hosmer, I expect to be better. Same with Manny Machado. I think it'll be the third season for Hosmer with the Padres and the second for Machado. So, yeah, that middle of the lineup could be very dangerous. Chris Paddock, along with Tatis, nice pieces to have going forward. You compare it to the White Sox. Say, Giolito and either Jimenez and Robert for them. Padres have Tatis and Chris Paddock. Those two could be, headlining the position pitcher for the next decade as we, enter the 20s.
Right.
Too much turnover. I think actually the rotation could be pretty solid. Zach Davies is an innings eater. Garrett Richards, if he's healthy, which is pretty much never. But
yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
If he's healthy, he is a guy who shows middle of the rotation potential. But I just think their bullpen, outside of Kirby Yates is a stud.
Yeah. Love me some Kirby Yates.
Best relievers last year had just slightly over 1 ERA. He led the NL in saves at 41. He's a stud. They're bringing Drew Pomerantz and Emilio Pagan at the bullpen. So things alike, but between the inexperienced manager who really isn't a sexy hire and some of the problems at the back end of the rotation and maybe the lineup depth, I just don't see them necessarily being a real threat to either the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks.
This might be one of those teams like the White Sox for me last year that I like them, but I think they're a year away. Because they do have a good minor league system. They really do. They have one of the better minor league systems in the whole league. And it goes far beyond Gore. And yeah, like right immediately besides Gore, they don't have anyone that stands out. But guys like C.J. Abrams, Luis Patino, they've got a couple of other guys in the top 50 or 60 that should see the field, if not this year, then next year for sure. So we'll be seeing all those guys step up one way or the other in the next year or two. It's just maybe a year too early for them to step up. But moving on, because we still have two other teams, the Colorado Rockies. Now, you had mentioned before, if we were playing normal, then the AL West teams would be licking their chops going out to Colorado, but they're not. But Colorado's another team that's got a very solid lineup. Dahl, Trevor Story is a beast. Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado is a damn legend. Even young guys like Garrett Hampson at second base and Ryan McMahon at first base. Daniel Murphy as most likely the first baseman or full-time DH. Real solid hitting group, really solid, especially with Dahl, Story, Blackmon, and Arenado. That's fucking really nice. Their starting pitching staff is going to be mix and match. Aside from German Marquez and John Gray, who's up and down, guys like Kyle Freeland, Jeff Hoffman, Ubaldo Jimenez. There's probably like 4 to 6 guys who are contending for like the last 2 spots. But I don't know. Just solid, not spectacular, nothing really special. I really like Story. I really like Arenado. I really like Marquez. Gray has his moments, but pitching depth is nice to have. But I feel like if it's useful pitching depth, that's what you're looking for, as opposed to the way I'm looking at it now. Antonio Senzatella, Jeff Hoffman, Chichi Gonzalez, Ubaldo Jimenez, Peter Lambert. These are the names of guys who are contending for those last 2 spots. They might go with a 6-man rotation just because. But I like them. They're fun, but not much of a contender in my eyes.
Yeah, the Rockies are usually one of those fun teams, obviously because they play in Coors Field, a big factor. But they have some very good hitters, like you alluded to, like the Blackmons and Arenado, Story, Brian McMahon. They'll get to be able to put in the lineup more often. Even someone like Daniel Murphy, it'll be great having him for a DH. That's probably where he's going to slide in. He's never been one of the better defenders in the National League between his time with the Mets and the Nationals and now the Rockies. But their lineup is definitely going to cause some problems. I love their bench even. Tapia, Matt Kemp is probably going to make the roster. He used to be a great player with the Dodgers, but I think he's going to get a decent shot with the Rockies, especially if any injuries hit them. So they shouldn't have any problems there. But like always with the Rockies, being in the mile high and the thin air and the fact that their ballpark just yields a lot of runs, it's tough on those pitchers. I think John Gray is someone that I've been high on for years, but it's never fully come together. I think the ballpark effect is definitely a factor there, and like it is for all their pitchers, really. But their pitchers are better than they have been in the past. So
They are.
Yeah, that's the one thing you do feel a little more confident in their starting rotation. They're gonna win some games that people maybe wouldn't expect them to. And then Wade Davis is a very good closer. Scott Oberg is a good late innings guy. But they also had to bring in 3 or 4 new bullpen arms. And they're just, when you compare their roster to, say, the Diamondbacks and particularly the Dodgers, they just don't stack up as well. But they're a middle-of-the-pack team.
They are.
They're in a 60-game season. Would it shock me if they maybe slid into the wild card? No. But am I going to predict it? No. I'm not going to. I don't have the sand to do that.
Second time Bob admits to not having the sand. So
one thing, also Ian Desmond, that does hurt that he's not going to play now. He's not as good as he used to be. He's not like a 2020 threat in a normal season that he usually would be, but he has like 4 young children and basically he's opting out of the season due to COVID-19.
Got to do what you got to do. Protect yourself, protect your loved ones. It is what it is. It's a new world that we live in. But it will hurt the Colorado Rockies, that's for sure. Now let's wrap it up with our NL West with San Francisco Giants. Now, it's a little sad to say this out loud because they've been so good mostly for the last decade, one of the better teams, on and off, on and off. They've won, some World Series and stuff like that, some good stuff. They got some good history, but Yeah, it's real fucking threatening. This is one of those teams that has pieces that I think they'll be looking to get rid of once things start to unravel for their season, which I think it will. I think we're looking at one of the worst teams in the league. Um, if you're a fan of the San Francisco Giants, I apologize. Um, I don't hate them. I just think they're ass. And they went 77-85 last year. Not that good. I don't see that getting any better. I mean, they have Joey Bart, one of the top prospects in baseball, a top 15 prospect, catcher on the horizon. They've got a couple of other young guys. They've got 5 prospects in the top 100 for MLB.com prospect rankings. Take that for what you will, but I think better days are on the horizon. I think it's gonna be a disappointing season for the Giants.
Definitely. They're rebuilding. Buster Posey already said he's going to opt out of this year. Him and his wife, I believe, are trying to adopt 2 young children. They just don't want to take the chance. And obviously, Buster Posey's proven everything that he needs to
Mm-hmm.
in baseball. Been one of the best catchers of the past decade. And it's funny because it feels like ages ago now, but they won the most World Series of the past decade. They won in 2010, 12, and 14. But it feels like forever ago
It
now.
feels like a lifetime ago.
It really does. I don't even know if they've made the playoffs in the last 4 years. Definitely not in the last 3. I know that for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just, and I think counting it, I think they have the most roster turnover, at least projected for an opening day roster. I count right now
Let's see.
11 new players potentially on their roster.
Yeah.
Again, speaks to what I was talking about. I see about like 5 new arms, about 5 new hitters.
Relief pitchers.
Posey's out. Pence, I love that they brought him back.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, he's not going to be able to play in front of those fans that love him. They brought back Sandoval, another fan favorite, but they've seen better days. It's just that aging old team that is just has no chance. Like even this 60-game season, you just
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to be good. They lost arguably their best hitter in Buster Posey.
They lost their best pitcher in Madison Bumgarner.
Exactly. They lost Bumgarner.
They lost their best relief pitcher in Will Smith.
Exactly. So, and they brought in a joke of a manager in Gabe Kapler. I don't know how he got a job so terrible with the Philadelphia Phillies. And now he got a job right away. It's crazy. It's like Adam Gase. I mean, not on that level because it's not.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Adam Gase is such a fucking dumpster fire.
But that's the parallel that it's a
God.
coach,
So bad.
manager, and they didn't do that well. Now, granted, I don't think Kapler was someone that was hated by his players necessarily, but definitely made plenty of boneheaded decisions in his few seasons with his previous team, and now he gets a job right away. No, like you need to like humble yourself and
be a third base coach for a year. Go to the minors and be a minor league manager.
Whatever. Be a minor league coach, be a bench coach for another team,
fuck off.
whatever it might be. But yeah, there's nothing to get excited. Evan Longoria is seeing better days. I mean, their best hitters are Brandon Bell,
Yep.
Brandon Crawford. I can't get excited for that.
Yolmer Sanchez, yuck.
They have 3 new starters potentially in their rotation. Cueto's coming off an injury. Samardzija is still a great innings eater, but again, a guy who's seen better days in his career. The Giants are just pretty bad.
Another team of sellers. Trade Gaussman, trade Smiley, trade Watson, trade fucking Pence, trade all these fucking guys.
Definitely. 100%.
So that being said, Mr. Hunt, who's winning the American League East? I'm sorry. Why do I keep saying the East? Who's winning the American League West, the Wild West?
I actually am going to go with a bit of a surprise. I'm going with the Oakland Athletics.
Holy shit. He actually did that. Wow. Wow, wowie, wow, wow. I'm going to go with the Houston Astros.
Okay.
And who's winning the West, Bob?
The LA Dodgers.
Pencil me in for the Dodgers as well. Now, we both picked the Dodgers to win the NL West. Bob, you have some wild cards that you got to sort out for me.
Yes.
So why don't you do that for me right now?
Well, I'm writing down what your predictions are because obviously I already have mine, but we
Mm-hmm.
records here.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I can't wait to
I
hear
am
this.
going with the Astros to win the wild card in the AL. I'm not going
Okay.
on such a crazy limb and not have them make the playoffs. I was really tempted with both the Astros and Nationals, the World Series winners from last year. I'm like, all right, maybe in a 60-game season we see some shocks and hangover from last year's World Series. But as I've said twice already in these podcasts, I just didn't have the sand to do it.
You don't got the balls. You're missing
And,
something.
but I did
Missing it.
vote the Astros to a wild card.
You did. You did. For what that's worth, I like it. I mean, I don't like it, but I like it. So, my American League wild cards are already claimed. So, it is what it is on that front. But I do have one left for the National League, and to be honest, it was close between the D-backs and the Padres. But I'm gonna fucking go with the Padres.
Yeah. Well, because you know what mine's going to be. Because I know how you ordered it. You probably started talking about these teams and you projected standings. So you went Diamondbacks second. And, well,
You see what I'm trying to pull.
I was very high on the Diamondbacks. So, yes, they are my wild card team. They're my second wild card team to the Nationals. I had a very hard time picking those two wild cards over, say, the Mets and the Reds. They were
Mm-hmm.
definitely in contention. Even the Cubs, even though I said they're down on the downtrend or downward spiral, whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the Cubs are good. They're not a bad team. It's just I think they're trending in the wrong direction. But ultimately, yeah, I go with the Diamondbacks as my wild card. But Dan's going with the Padres. I like it. Going on a bit of a limb.
And I went with the Padres just to be different, and I like them, and it is what it is. I'm hoping that their pitching staff gets their shit together in a shortened season. But to be completely honest, I do see the Phillies, the Nationals, and the Cubs as bigger threats than the Padres. And I wanted to put them out there, either any of those teams in the wild card. And as Bob said, on his end, it was very difficult. And it was on my end as well. I went totally left field with the Padres. I'm probably going to be completely disappointed with them. It is what it is. Again, the Phillies are right. The Nats just won the chip. They're fucking right. They're 1-2-3, might be the best in the whole league. And Soto might be a National League MVP candidate when it's all said and done. So the Nats got a lot going for them. I may immediately regret not going with the Nats as my other wild card. But I didn't want to have two teams from the East in the wild card. So, here we are. So that's what it is. We got our predictions. We got our division winners, Bob. What's going to be? Who's going to be AL winner? Who's going to be your NL winner?
Last year, I went with the Yankees and Nationals in the World Series. Unfortunately, I was wrong, mainly because, obviously, by my shirt, I'm a Yankee fan. Wish they had made it. They didn't. I did have the Yankees winning it, so I wasn't right. The Nationals wound up winning it. Putting the Yankees in there again. Fuck it.
I'm going to take the Yankees as well. Now, what's your National League team?
My National League team is very chalky. Sorry. It's going to be the Dodgers. They're due.
Mm-hmm.
I got to pick the Dodgers. Even in a 60-game season, one thing I said in one of the other episodes, I don't know whether it was the East or Central, whatever, but at least the 60-game season could mean we could see some surprise. Now, the only shocks I would say is that the Yankees and Dodgers, if they were not to make the playoffs, but everything else could be totally up to chance. Like, it wouldn't shock me if like the Astros missed or the
Yeah, fuck it.
either or even the Twins. I think the Twins should be a shoe-in. Probably right after the Yankees and Dodgers. I think the Twins are most likely of every other team, even more so than Astros, just because I think the Angels and the Athletics are very strong competition. Plus, they are playing, the Dodgers a lot and the Diamondbacks. But I just feel like that once it comes to the postseason, it's staying the same basically. Like the proposal that was in one of the a bunch of the proposals actually over those long negotiations where baseball was pissing us off was that the playoffs would be expanded and there would be like 8 teams per. But that's not happening. It's
Yeah.
going to stay the same. You're going to have only 5 teams, and it's going to be the same format. So once it gets to the postseason, yeah, we might have a fluke get in, but once we get to the postseason, the format's the same. So I think that's still going to benefit the teams that have the aces at the top, that have the deep lineups, that have the very good bullpens.
Yep.
I think even though, yeah, people are talking about, oh, it's an asterisk, whoever wins it, and it's not a legitimate season, blah, blah, blah. The postseason is going to be legit, in my opinion, once we get there. The postseason will be legit. So I think cream will rise to the top once we get to the postseason, and the best teams will get there. So I'm going with the Yankees and the Dodgers.
I'm going to go with the Yankees Dodgers as well, but I'm going to have the Dodgers winning it.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you. So I'll go with the Yankees. Thank you.
It breaks my heart. I am a Yankees fan. I want us to win more than anything. I don't care about anyone else. I don't care about anything else. I couldn't give not a single fuck about anything non-Yankees aside from the guys on my fantasy baseball team.
Of course.
But we're here to be correct, and the Dodgers are stacked. If they're healthy, I don't see really how they lose. I mean, they lost last year in Game 7 to the Nats, but the Nats were riding a wave, and it's going to take something like that again for the Nats or any other team to overtake the Dodgers. The Yankees are going to bring it, but the Rays scare me, the Twins scare me, and the Astros been there, done that, so it wouldn't surprise me if they showed up with a chip on their shoulder too. So it's going to be an interesting baseball season. You best believe we're gonna talk about what we did on our fantasy drafts after our draft in a couple of days, and baseball is what, less than a week away. So
Finally.
yo, we made it, dude. We made it.
Pray that we get through this healthy. There's going to be guys that do get COVID, but we just got to pray against an outbreak because the way they set up, I mean, ultimately, all these leagues are coming back for money. Let's be honest. If safety was the number one priority,
they wouldn't be playing.
But again, the owners, the players, they want to make money. They want to live up to, at the very least, the TV contracts and make that money. So, hopefully all these leagues can get back without a hitch. We'll see if that actually happens. But
yep.
I feel actually probably best of the three sports coming back right now. I'm not counting football for right now because they still have about a month and a half. But I feel the best about baseball because it's outdoors. They're going to be traveling. They're not going to have bozos in a bubble.
Bozos in a bubble. I love that.
So I think baseball has a very good shot, and also just with a deeper roster and all these guys that they can pull from. Even if a team, say, got like 4 or 5 guys to contract COVID, I think they're just going to truck along.
We can only hope for that. The safety and the health is what really matters, is what's important. So hopefully, like you said, nobody gets sick, nothing gets crazy, and we'll see what Trout and some of the other superstars are going to do. But we made it. It's back. We're here. It's different, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be weird. But hopefully some of my predictions come true in terms of like young legends stepping up and teams coming out of left field and fucking shit up. I hope it gets really crazy. That's exciting stuff. But no matter what, let's go Yankees.
Yes, indeed. Let's go Yankees. Hope it's a fun season for all the teams, and especially in New York. The Yankees and Mets are very good.
Yo, Yankees and Mets, baby. Let's fucking go. Subway Series. Let's do it.
I'll sign up for that right now. No doubt about it. I think it's more fun when the Mets are involved.
That's it. I'm Dan Kornhauser.
I'm Bobby Hunt.
Thank you guys for tuning in, sticking with us, and watching all 3 parts. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter. Give us a follow. Bob, what's the handle?
That's DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. We kept it easy for everyone. That's what it is on Twitter. That's what it is on Instagram. That's what it is on YouTube. So we made it very easy for you. And if you search on any podcast site or you Google search us, put Dan and Bob Talking Sports if you want to listen to us. And then hopefully you also see the link for the YouTube videos. But if not, You just pump in that DB Talking Sports there, and you'll be able to find us. And again, we appreciate all kinds of feedback, whether you want to kill us for our predictions or mock us. We don't give a shit. We'll
Or
respond.
tell us how much you love our new mascot. This guy's going to be making some more appearances on shows when I get fucking disgusted.
This is my pet's pineapple bed, but Dan has a little bit of a mascot. I had to bring something out that resembled it, and they're both pineapples.
I love it. It's fantastic. So also, let me know what we should name this little guy, because he definitely needs a name. I love him. And, you know, we'll have a little vote or something. We'll go for something special. But thanks again for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed. Give us a follow. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. Questions, comments, concerns, as Bob said. We love them. And we look forward to talking to you guys. Thanks, and we'll talk to you guys later.